Okay, it's time for the August recent release roundup. I was intimidated by it, and I had some trips at the end of September, which is normally when I do my research for these videos, so it's a little late, and I'm sorry, but I did it. We have 11 books to talk about across a wide range of genres, and this was like the month of releases. This had at least a lot of people's heavy hitter releases. I think the next month that has like bigger releases is November. November's always a big month because of the holidays, but man, August, whew, there was definitely... I think there's going to be like 50 plus videos in the description. If you're new to these, it's where I go on YouTube and I watch a bunch of reviews for recently released books, and I will have all the channels and the reviews down below with the timestamps, so go check them out because they are lovely reviewers, all of them. And also I will have a Goodreads shelf if you want to see synopses of these books, because I don't talk about the synopses usually in these videos. I'll talk about the vibes people talk about, tropes, things that might be better buzzwords, because for me, I'm just not a synopses-driven reader per se. And yeah, we're all over the place, and I usually like go back and forth between has the most ratings to least approximately as of when I do my research for the videos. And so because of that, we are starting with I'm Glad My Mom Died, which is a memoir that has taken my book watching life by storm. I did not know this was coming out. I did not watch Nickelodeon growing up. I was not allowed to. That was like one of the few things my mom's like, no. I think it was Cat Dog. I think Cat Dog really scared her. Anyways, I know she was an actress in iCarly. I know iCarly had a reboot, and I know it was a big thing that she was not going to join the reboot and that there were a lot of traumatic things that happened to her. And this memoir goes into it, and it has been generally very positively received. I have Michael Knipp, who approached it from the child star angle, and then I have a Book Olive, who talks about it more as like a review of a memoir and some of the writing style things that she didn't like, or the things that also hit well for her. But also, I will say on the flip side that although a Book Olive didn't love the writing style as much, like I think she was the one that had the least praise for the actual writing, a lot of people really enjoyed the writing, the kind of deadpan approach style to this. Leanna was one who definitely mentioned that. A lot of people listened to it because she narrates it herself, so it's a memoir narrated by the person who wrote the memoir, which I think is usually one of the better ways to consume a memoir, when you have someone telling you their own story. I think I heard that sentence almost verbatim in every video. So we have those reviews. I know Mara from Books Like Whoa read and reviewed it, and also she approached it kind of like how if I had read this book would approach it, of not knowing that this person was famous and what she's famous for. So not having an attachment to the celebrity, but still finding it a really valuable celebrity memoir. So in general, if you're okay with the trigger warnings, because I think although it has a very deadpan approach that makes it kind of easier to be introduced to a lot of the heavy topics, they're still really heavy topics. Abuse, I think potentially both emotionally and physically, potentially also sexually. I don't actually know, have not read it, but I know there's going to be a lot of that, and also in particular eating disorder representation. And I did hear from people who had eating disorders that it's actually very accurate for their experiences with eating disorders. Obviously, like all things, there is no monolith, but that also means that if that's triggering to you, and maybe you're not in a place where that would be cathartic, handle with care. So yeah, it's definitely something that's on my radar. I'm not very good at consuming celebrity memoirs myself. Like I've always like seen the Trevor Noah one and wanted to read it, but I never do. And this is kind of a similar vein where it's like, I think it would be good, but I just don't gravitate towards memoirs very often. But it seems like this is definitely one that's worth checking out, and that a lot of people are finding a lot of value in, regardless of if you have connection to iCarly or not. Next up, we will talk about one that has the lowest ratings, which is sad. So sad. And I only could find one review, which is actually ironically why she made the review, and that is A Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. Evie from She Was Only Evie made a review specifically so I could talk about it in this video, although I was going to talk about it anyways because it's one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and I am currently, I think, 200 pages into it. Life has prevented me from just sitting down and reading this book, and it's a crime because I really love the project of this book. But she has a very passionate, glowing review that you can watch. This is a Filipino-inspired fantasy that is one of the most unique narrative nesting styles I've ever seen. I would not say that you should pick this up if you do not like unique narrative frameworks. If that's not your buzzword, this might be a little tricky, especially because it's kind of told in a way that's like a distant narrative style, kind of similar to what I was remembering when I read The Grace of Kings, where it's like, I do feel connected to the situation around me, but I don't feel as immersed as I'm used to when I'm reading a more traditionally prose-written fantasy or sci-fi story. And it's definitely the case here because we have our observer of this story who in his dreams is taken to this stage where he sees a production of a story of his the old country, what they call it, so Filipino, and then it's also sprinkled in with narrative things from his grandmother, and it's really interesting, and it's told about this 5-day pilgrimage and what is happening to this empire as we are changing rule or trying to dismantle the government. So it has some traditional fantasy tropes to it, but it's told in a very unique way, and it has so much unique lore that I've never gotten to explore. It also has like these really fascinating like talking turtles, and it's just such a fascinating project, and I just need my brain to be awake. And that's the thing. I think it's a brain needs to be awake work. Like, it's not as easy for me to consume as his debut, The Vanished Birds. The Vanished Birds read like butter to me. I didn't have to think about what I was reading. It all entered seamlessly. And this, like, I feel like if I miss a sentence, I've missed part of the experience. I'm like, no, I need to reconsume that, because the way he sets the scene, describes what's happening around is both very immersive, but I need to like work my way into getting into the prose style. So that's my personal experience. For Evie, it worked really well. I think she likes it even more than The Vanished Birds. So if you are looking for diverse fantasy that's written in a very unique way, like I wouldn't say this is literary. Like I don't think it's like the Black Leopard, is it Black Leopard, Red Wolf, or the book by James Marlin, which is definitely literary fantasy. It's not as difficult as that or as literary as that, but it is very unique. Like, I would think that if you had trouble reading the 5th season because of its second-person narrative framework, that this would be even more challenging, because even within the text, we switch to first-person perspectives. And it's because it's a play. It's a fascinating project. So that's my ramble. That's my pitch. Also, the end pages are a stunning propaganda map. So again, it's just one of those things where I just love the project of it so much. It's just like, I love it. Anyways, back to a very, very popular one. Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. I've read this myself. But I have reviews for All I Do Is Read. She did it for her September series project, which was a ton of fun. Jess Owens, who also talks about kind of the author's process and the controversy around people when they saw a review, or not a review, an interview of Hazelwood's process. Mara from Books Like Whoa, Abby Salter, and then I'm going to point you, I guess, to Bethany's wrap-up where she talks about it, but really you'll get the most informative information of her perspective in her Goodreads review. In general, the consensus is it has the same tropes and feelings as the Love Hypothesis, but a lot of people, myself included, was like, in theory, I like Love on the Brain more. I like a lot of how things happen. But I think because Love Hypothesis did it first for me, that one's going to have a more lasting impression. And for me, and I think Allie also put it, her books need to have a bad guy. There's an antagonistic person in each of the books. And I don't love that in either of them. It was very stressful for me, even though I knew it would work out. But in Love Hypothesis, I liked the stress. And here, I did not like the stress. Like, I actively was like, why? I want to not focus on this. I want to actually just focus on how this person needs to grow and heal and be able to accept this relationship. Like, I wanted a different focus. That said, I still really liked it, and I don't mind that it's samey. Like, I knew it was going to be the same, and that's what I wanted. So, if you've given yourself enough time since the Love Hypothesis and you're not burnt out on her tropes, she continues to do them very well. This is slightly different. I mean, the character types, you still got the quirky girl, you still got the tall, broody guy, but the setup's different. I actually really like this setup. I think Mara said it's like the Darcy Elizabeth enemies to lovers, where it's not actually enemies to lovers, it's just miscommunication enemies to lovers sort of thing. And I really love that trope. I was really wanting that, and that's not really, I think, as the case in Love Hypothesis. I really loved the romance of Love on the Brain more than the Love Hypothesis. I just didn't like the architecture of the plot. And I think part of that goes into Bethany's Goodreads review, which is like, I just ignore a lot of the plots and the trappings of the STEM space because I'm too close to it, and it always is over the top. It has that fan fiction quality that Mara talks about in her reviews, where it's just like, yeah, I can't really look into that, or else like I'm going to see all the holes. So I don't, but I do think that's part of it. It's like the stresses of academia and how it's done over the top for the sake of the story is a lot for me. But in general, I do think this is a case where if you like what she does, she continues to do it well in this book. Next up, we're going to talk about the first binding, which I thought would have more ratings because A, I have a bunch of reviews for it, and B, it was just all over my internet space. It was being really pushed to me, I think, by Tor. It is not a book for me. I DNF'd it. Elliot Brooks, I have her fantasy recent release wrap-up, also DNF'd it. And I guess we'll just continue with some of the negative takes because I do have positive reviews as well, but Bemused Bookworm had a really well thought out kind of 2.5 star review, and Whimsy Dearest also did not have a good time with it. People who did have a good time with it, Petrick loved this, Brian Lee Durfee, and Judith had a good time with it from Dead Good Book Reviews. She ended up having a good experience overall. This is definitely a thing where I think if you like the writing style, you will have a good time, or at least if the writing style does not irk you, because that for sure for me was the thing that I was like, I can't. Because for me, the writing style really brought out, I think, the arrogance and the hubris of the main character, and I don't know if that was intentional or not, but intentional or not, I couldn't stand it. So for me, that was a real hindrance. And then for other people who the writing style wasn't a problem, who had issues, they really didn't like the internalized misogyny of our main character, or at least in the writing, there were definitely some cliche, misogynistic, was this written in 2004 type lines that were put in the book. And you can look at Bemused Bookworm for some examples. Now, the people who loved it loved the narrative framework of this. This is your classic narrative framework of someone telling their own story, which, and it's done very much, I think, I heard beat for beat like Name of the Wind. It's not Name of the Wind writing style. It's not like that at all. But in terms of a storyteller telling his story and the steps he goes through, I think there's even a similar school setting. I heard interesting things about the world building and the magic, and that once you are in the flashback story, it's a very good time. I could not get to the flashback story. And that was another thing, is that because you have a flashback story and then sometimes stories within stories, you're not necessarily going to be as equally invested in everything at once, and it's an 800-page tome. So for me, I just felt it was overwritten, which is why I DNF'd it. But I think if you like our main character, who does, he's got a strong personality. And if it doesn't bother you, I think you'll have a good time. And it's Southeastern inspired, which is why I picked it up. I wanted some Silk Road fantasy. I was, really excited for that premise. And I like Name of the Wind, so, the narrative framework would have been fine for me. I'm not someone who DNF'd this because I didn't want another Name of the Wind. It was purely, for me, a writing style thing, which I think you can find out for yourself very quickly if it'll work or not work for you. But yeah, those are the main things about the first binding. So we got half positive reviews, half mediocre reviews, so you can really figure out where your tastes aligned with these reviewers and figure out what you want. And the next one was this is a book, I kid you not, I think I spent over an hour and a half watching reviews for this book. And I still don't know when I'll read it or what I'll think of it, but it's Babel by R.F. Kuang. Maybe by the time I'm doing this video, it should have been in a different spot because of, ratings change and keep coming in. But this is probably in the fantasy sphere the most anticipated release of the year, potentially. I don't know. It has also the most editions. I'm at least giving it gets the most special editions out the gate prize, because have you seen all the editions? There are so many. I will have linked down below, because I have so many reviews, the people who had positive reviews versus the negative, because I really can't list all of them. Okay, I can. Mara really likes it. Daniel Green really liked it. Elle liked it, but I don't think loves it as much. And she had a really well put together review. Jess Owens loves it. Petrick loves it. Tammy has a vlog where she talks about why she really enjoyed it. Whimsy Dearest really enjoyed it. Two Stephanies really liked it. Stephanie from Miss Richards Read has a review, and Stephanie has a Dark Academia vlog where she reads this. And then Abby Salter liked it and says the Oxford representation was good. Not a perfect, but good. She also made a point of bringing up that it does not rain as much as in Oxford as people think. And then the people who did not have as good of a time, Rogers Reads, Kayla, and Fraser. And I think those reviews were really interesting because they weren't just hating on the book, but I think they're good reviews to watch if you were on the fence about picking this up, because they really comment on the tropes, the writing styles, the focuses that didn't work for them. I found those very valuable to me. So this is a Dark Academia, but I feel when you talk about Dark Academia, you have to be well, what is it doing? Is it just the aesthetic Dark Academia with a bunch of privileged people who are doing bad things, kind of the Secret History-ish? I haven't read the Secret History. Okay, so if I got the Secret History wrong, I'm sorry. Or is it Dark Academia that's really focusing on the flaws of academia, and then if it's focusing on the flaws, which flaws? Because there are many. And I think this one focuses on the flaws that come from imperialism, colonialism, and treating people as other. Like, if you are not white, if you are not a man, typically academia doesn't treat you very well. And this, I think, focuses more on colonialism and imperialism, specifically in a secondary world inspired by our 1800s England. And so in this story, there's a lot of focus on translation. Translation is incorporated into the magic. I think it's pretty soft magic, even though it's kind of inscription magic, but I think you have to really suspend some disbelief with the magic system. At least I was talking to Leanna, who does not have a review out yet, but I can tell you she does not like this book. And she was explaining to me why she doesn't like the magic system and the intricacies of it. So I think if you go into it with, like, it's soft magic, you'll be okay. It's more like an allegory or metaphor. It's representing something. It's a magic system where when you use silver to translate something, what is lost in translation allows for an effect. That's what I got from it. Honestly, I've watched hours of reviews and I still don't really know what this magic system does. So it's definitely something that is not like the focus on the explanation, even though I heard there was a lot of explaining it in lectures in the book. Like, if you don't want to feel like you're in school, I don't know if this is the dark academia for you. And there's a lot of, I think, interesting discussion on imperialism and translation. And I mean, the book itself, its full title is about, violence and rebellion. I think there was one quote that Kayla had in her review that's in the book about how the act of translating is always an act of violence to the original work, and I really like that. As someone who's been reading in Spanish recently, translating things is fascinating to my brain, so that alone makes me want to read it. But then the character work of R.F. Kuang, I think, either really works for a person or is a real miss. I think that's a very personal thing. Character connection is the most subjective thing about reading. I say that always, every time. And for me, I didn't connect to many of the side characters in the Poppy War, and I didn't connect to Rin. I thought Rin was an interesting character to follow, but I did not care. And I feel like that's going to be a similar experience for me based off the reviews with Robin, and I think there's Victor, and a bunch of other characters that no one ever named in their reviews, where if you connect to characters, you're going to have an emotional experience like you did if you read the Poppy War. But if you don't connect to how she does character work, if you do not meet it halfway, I think, and really bring some of your own imagination to the characters, it might be a miss for you. Because I think we all subconsciously do that when we read any work. And so that has me nervous just because I don't think this was a difference from the Poppy War. I don't want to say an improvement or anything, because I don't necessarily think what she did in the Poppy War was bad. It just didn't work for me. So based off the reviews, that's kind of my takeaway on the character work and what may or may not work for me. It's also unclear to me if this is a standalone or not. Some people are talking about how it leaves it open for another book, but we don't know if there's another book. So there's that. Also, this dialogue will be modern. It takes place in an inspired 1800s, but it's a modern dialogue. If you are someone who does not like that specific historical inaccuracy, this will bother you. I can for sure say that. And let's see, is there anything else? Ooh, genre definition. I don't think this is that important, but a lot of people, I think, came to this expecting one thing and got another. Based off all the reviews I've seen, this is kind of an accessible historical literary fantasy. And what I mean by that is if you come to it having read literary fantasy, it might actually not read in the prose style you expect, because I think intentionally R.F. Kuang uses a writing style that's meant to be more explanatory, info dumpy. It's meant to be more direct. I think that's just her style. And that's not normally the style in literary or literary fantasy. And it's also more historical. Like, this is definitely not high fantasy. This isn't a school setting where we're just casting spells everywhere. So I think that's like the best hodgepodge definition I can give it. And that means that I don't necessarily know who this is for, but the vast majority of people have loved it. So it's definitely worth a try. If anything I've said is like, yes, I want to explore that. But just know that it doesn't work for everyone for some of the reasons that I have mentioned. So now we're going to get into a fantasy romance, A Taste of Iron and Gold. I have a bunch of reviews for this too, negative and positive. I personally DNF'd it just because I wasn't connected to the romance. I think that's also a very subjective thing about romance books. It's like, do you care about the characters? And if the answer is no, you should probably stop the romance. So I have Bald Book Geeks who did not like it, and then I have Ramsky Reads who liked it but didn't love it, and then I have Nerdy Nurse Reads who wanted to love it desperately but just did not care. And then the positive reviews I have are Ramblin' Reader, Kalinati, Aaron from Books and Busy, and Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany. So those are the reviews. I have down below. The people who loved it loved the romance. They loved how slow burn it was, so it's very slow burn. They also really loved the world building. Actually, even the negative reviews loved the world building. It's an Ottoman-inspired world. There's a lot of focus on politics and economics. Very low magic. Like, I think it just has to do with tastes of metal. I don't know, 100 pages in, that's all I got, too, from the magic. So if you like that kind of historical-inspired fantasy, this, I think, is done really well for people. It's also a very LGBTQ inclusive world, so if you're always looking for that. It is the romance tropes of enemies to friends to lovers with bodyguard romance, and the bodyguard part is apparently handled very well for people. In general, the people who didn't enjoy it didn't think that the marketing was what they expected for tropes, and so they were told marketing enemies to lovers and the one bed trope, and apparently it wasn't quite what they expected from those tropes. So I guess know that. And then someone else really didn't like the character work, which, yeah, if you don't like the character work, I don't think a romance is going to work, because I feel like most romances are very character driven. And almost everyone, even the people who liked it, thought it was a fairly predictable book. There's like a mystery in it. I mean, I think I know who did it, and I only read 100 pages, so I don't know if I'm right, but I probably am based off all these reviews. So if you're someone who needs a plot to keep that intrigue going, that's not going to happen. But people really love this romance. Like, I think Aaron called it like tender and sweet and like, yeah. And even the person who didn't like that the romance tropes were maybe mispitched to him, he loved the outcome of the slow burn romance. So just know that. I wish I had connected to the characters more. It seems like when people have a great time, they have a great time. Next up is a book that was meant to be in July, but I forgot, so it's The Daughter of Dr. Moreau. I know this was a July release, but I wanted to read more. Like, I wanted to hear more about it because I have a complicated relationship with Silvia Moreno-Garcia. It's just the facts. This seems like it is a historical sci-fi speculative thing, and it's a reimagining, retelling of the original H.G. Wells. What's it called? I've never even read it. It's The Island of Dr. Moreau. I guess this is originally, the work is about, you know, how much can you play with the universe, who should be like God, stuff like that, you know, making weird science experiments, mad scientists, and the repercussions of that. And in this case, we are also looking at colonialism, feminism, and apparently it's a different kind of trajectory of the standard or more typical Silvia Moreno-Garcia hero, where at first she starts very content in her circumstances. A lot of her female protagonists normally are trying to break free. They're trying to, I don't know, accomplish their goals, and there are things in the way. In this case, apparently she starts off content, but then an outsider comes in and messes up the peace of their life. And then she has to start thinking about her life and what she actually wants, and then kind of progresses from there, is what I was kind of told in some reviews. I think if you're a Silvia Moreno-Garcia fan, you're going to love this book. I'm intrigued by it. I definitely am. I don't know what I'll think of it, because it does seem like it's more of a historical fiction that has speculative elements, specifically sci-fi with like the gene splicing and the making of the creatures, but it's more like, I would think, a literary sci-fi where, sure, we're doing sci-fi things, but it's meant more to have this higher thematic conversation, which can work for me. I just have to see. I just have to find out. I also heard that there's maybe a really nice like romance aspect. It's interesting seeing her grow up. So those are all buzzwords for me. The reviews I have, Bethany, Beautifully Bookish Bethany. Sydnia had a wonderful review. Highly recommend. Same with Book Whimsy. Cynthia did wonderful. Whimsy Dearest also liked it, and Bookish Melody. So I hadn't seen any negative reviews when I was looking through. I'm sure if I combed for longer I could. But in general, people were really happy with it, even when they saw faults, even when things weren't perfect for them. Because I do think that's something that Silvia Moreno-Garcia excels at. She has a really lovely writing style. I mean, even when I've read books by her and I wasn't gripped the entire time, I mean, the writing itself flowed very nicely. Next up was a sequel release that I loved, and I don't think they marketed it very hard. I don't think people remembered it came out, but it's the Oleander Sword, and it's wonderful. I bought myself a special edition. I have reviews from Shannon from That's So Po, Judith, and Katie, and the person who liked it the least is Katie, and she doesn't like the relationship or doesn't find it believable, which, fair enough. And in my own Discord, we always have this conversation because someone really loves the politics and the relationship between Malini and Priya, but does not like the nature magic. And I'm like, oh, but if we didn't have the nature magic, like, that's what makes it perfect for me. So this series is just a really fascinating discussion on rebellion and imperialism, and there are these different religions that are actually real, and I think vying for control of this plane of existence, I'm not sure. And Oleander's Sword takes place after the Jasmine Throne and all the things that happen there. And I will say, I think the Jasmine Throne is a more intimate setting. because we're on top of this kind of, I don't know, fortress is the wrong word, but we are kind of isolated. Our main characters are isolated from everything for the most part, and we do see the beginnings of rebellion. This is more military strategy focused. We are definitely setting things up. We're setting up our dominoes. We're watching them fall, which is not my favorite thing, which is probably why I don't like this one as much as the Jasmine Throne. That said, it was still 5 stars. That said, I still had so many emotions. Like, I just think all these characters are so well fleshed out. I love the writing of Tasha Suri. It was great. A wonderful sequel. Most people besides me think the sequel is stronger than the first book. So just, no middle book syndrome here. Although I need the third book, like, truly. And next up is a book that I kind of need to read. And I'm blaming Bookish Melody, and that's The Book Eaters, because she did say lightly, compared this to The Library at Mount Char. And, like, I understand, nothing is The Library at Mount Char. That's just a weird book. But if you watch my favorite standalone books, it's on that list. And it's apparently just, like, a weird time. Like, in every review, even people who didn't love it were just like, I've never read anything like this. This is just a very odd time. And it's very short. I saw it in person. I'm just like, oh, I could read that in, like, 2 days. That would really hit the spot. And it really does feel perfect for this time of year. This is a blendy speculative fiction. I think it has some horror vibes. It has some fantasy vibes. This is, I don't know, it's definitely also kind of contemporary urban. And I think there's a lot of allegories to close-knit religious communities, because I think we are following this community who, they eat books, they can experience books, books have different tastes, and then there's a type of eater that's not a book eater that is bad because they eat other people's minds, and our main character's son is a mind eater, so she kind of is taking care of him. But we also have this weird setup where, because there are so few women in this community, they only get to be married to someone and have kids for like a certain number of time, and then they are kind of like, I don't know if sold off is the right word, but they are transferred to another husband. And their kids taken away. So I think this is about this woman bucking the system, and it just seems so weird, and like about motherhood and what you do for someone you love. I don't know, it's got a lot of those trappings based off what I saw. But I have reviews from Bookish Melody, Booked Panda, and Sin's Book Nook, and yeah, I'm intrigued. I don't think it's for everyone. I think the pacing is inconsistent at times for people. But I don't know. I read the first couple pages at the bookstore, and I'm interested. I almost bought it. I was very close. This next one is a thriller, which is very high in its violence. So I guess, maybe would be horror for some people, and that's The Devil Takes You Home. This has been on my radar because I'm always looking for more Latine authors, and this is one of them. And like I said, this is kind of, Brad Proctor, compared it to Breaking Bad means From Dusk Till Dawn, because it's kind of like this good guy, because of society, has to become a bad person or do bad things to make ends meet, to save up money, because he recently had to spend all these medical bills on his daughter, who ended up passing away anyways. And so he's been doing these jobs, and this is going to be the last job. He doesn't need to do anything else, and in the process, supernatural things, I think, occur. I will say that people brought up that there's like this one scene that's like really hard to read. It's visceral, it's cruel, it's violent, it's a dark thriller. Like, even if you don't put in horror, it's a dark time. Everyone, and I mean everyone, so I had Brad Proctor, Sin's book, Mindy's book Journey, in Literary Life, they all use the word intense. All of them. Okay, so it's an intense read. Sin's Book Nook was like, I was really like depressed afterwards. Like, everyone enjoyed the experience. Like, even the 3-star read, which was Literary Life, was like, but I highly recommend this book because it's exploration of grief, the passion you can feel from the author in this, and the connections of the supernatural to his cultures and things like that was apparently really fascinating and great to read. Like, there were a lot of compliments on the nuance of the writing style, especially at the beginning when we're handling the grief of loss and having to keep going on and existing in a world that just keeps kicking you while you're down. And like, a lot of people also said this author keeps gut punching the reader. So it's that type of experience, and if you're not up for that, I get it, but that's what it is. And I don't know if I want it or not. I do know the book of the month has a translator guide because of one of these reviews, which I think is really interesting. So I don't read a lot of thrillers, but I might have to put this one on my list, like just because. And the last book we'll talk about is, I think, YA gothic horror with Phantom of the Opera vibes. I'm taking that basically from Elliot Brooks, who has a standalone review for Belladonna. I think this is the beginning of a duology, and apparently the Barnes & Noble edition is like the most stunning thing I've ever seen. Like, I wanted it almost just for that edition. This is a woman who keeps surviving even though everyone around her is dying. And she can kind of see death personified. And death personified has been fascinated with her throughout the years because she doesn't die. And death personified does not seem to be directly involved with the cause of death. It's just the person who's around afterwards, I guess. And there's this like slow burn developing relationship. So if you're not into the whole like immortal and young teen trope, probably pass on this. The negative reviews I do have for this did not like that. And in general, the people who did not enjoy this book do not like the main character. But again, that's a very subjective experience. I think some people thought the main character was too naive or things like that. If you want to see the negative reviews, we have Flip-Flops and Notebooks and Stories, sad. So, and then Whimsy Dearest was like lukewarm on it. But Elliot Brooks loved it and Ginger Snapped Reads also loved it. So we got a range of book reviews for this. And so, yeah, also a thing that was divisive, writing style. People either loved the descriptions and writing style or found things very repetitive and was done with it and found it very YA was the word they used. I don't really know what that means. I don't actually personally think there's much of a difference between YA and adult works when I read them. But it seems like there is a repetitive nature to some sentence structures and some descriptive words used that really bothered some readers, while other readers like Elliot loved the descriptions. Like that was one of her favorite things about it and how it brought the vibe and the aesthetic to life. So, you know, this definitely seems like one where you just have to, if you are on the fence, try a chapter or two if you can get a sample, and you'll figure out if you like it. It definitely seems like it explores grief and what it's like to be left behind from the people you lose. I think that theme resonates really strongly with some people and maybe not others, and that theme can definitely really carry the story. And I know that the personified death and our main character are the most well-developed characters, and that this isn't really a character-driven novel. So that, yeah, those are... I only covered 11 books this month, but I still feel like I've talked for like a very long time. And hopefully this was helpful. Let me know any releases that I missed. I know I did not cover all of them. Because August, like I said, so many books. Like I had such a long list, and I was like, I have to pare this down. But hopefully you still found some hidden gems or things you hadn't heard about, and you got some help for some of the new releases. If you want to leave an emoji, let's leave a book for the book eaters. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.